When her parents never returned from town, 7-year-old Clara May had only a trembling puppy and a hunting knife to face the terrors that came knocking in the dead of night. The dust settled on the abandoned homestead as the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the jagged peaks of the Sierra Nevada mountains. What remained was silence, a heavy, pressing silence that wrapped around the small wooden cabin like a burial shroud. Inside, 7-year-old Clara May Hutchins sat on the rough-hewn floor, her arms wrapped tightly around a trembling brown and white puppy, no more than 3 months old. The animal pressed its warm body against her chest, seeking comfort from the only living soul left in that desolate place. "Hush now, Biscuit," Clara whispered, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her heart. "Pa and Ma will come back. They promised they would." But even as she spoke the words, Clara knew something terrible had happened. Her parents had ridden into the town of Dry Creek early that morning, leaving her with strict instructions to stay inside, bolt the door, and wait for their return before sunset. The sun had set hours ago, and the darkness outside was complete. The journey had begun 3 months prior, when the Hutchins family left their comfortable life in St. Louis, Missouri, chasing dreams of gold and a better future in California. Clara's father, Thomas Hutchins, was a blacksmith by trade, but the stories of fortunes being made in the Western Territories had captured his imagination. Her mother, Elizabeth, had been reluctant but ultimately supportive, packing their belongings into a covered wagon and setting out with hope in their hearts. They had found the abandoned cabin 2 weeks ago, nestled in a valley that seemed protected from the harsh elements. Thomas had declared it perfect, a temporary home while he established himself in the nearby mining town. The previous occupants had left behind a few pieces of furniture, some rusted tools, and nothing else to indicate why they had departed so hastily. Biscuit had come into Clara's life just days after their arrival. The puppy had wandered into their camp, starving and covered in mud, his ribs visible through his matted fur. Elizabeth had wanted to shoo the animal away, worried about what diseases it might carry, but Clara had begged with tears streaming down her face. Thomas, always soft-hearted when it came to his only child, had relented. "Every girl needs a companion," he had said, ruffling Clara's hair, "and every homestead needs a good dog." Now that companion was all Clara had. The cabin creaked and groaned as the night wind picked up outside. Clara flinched at every sound, her eyes darting toward the bolted door. Her mother had taught her to be brave, to face hardship with a straight spine and clear eyes. But this was different. This was in darkness that seemed alive, pressing against the windows, searching for a way inside. Biscuit whimpered and licked Clara's chin. "I know, boy," she said. "I'm scared too." The fire in the hearth had burned down to embers. Clara knew she should add more wood to keep the cold at bay, but that would mean letting go of Biscuit, and she couldn't bear to do that. Instead, she pulled the wool blanket tighter around them both and pressed her back against the stone fireplace, drawing what little warmth remained. Outside, somewhere in the vast darkness, a coyote howled. Then another. Biscuit's ears perked up, and a low growl rumbled in his chest, a sound too large for such a small creature. Clara stroked his head, quieting him. "Bar, they can't get in," she whispered, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. The hours crawled by like wounded creatures. Clara drifted in and out of an uneasy sleep, her dreams filled with images of her parents riding toward her, their faces obscured by shadows. Each time she woke, the cabin was darker, the embers dimmer, the night more oppressive. It was in one of these moments of wakefulness that Clara heard it, the sound of hooves approaching. Her heart leaped with joy, and she scrambled to her feet, ready to throw open the door and rush into her parents' arms. But something stopped her. The hoofbeats were wrong, too many horses, too fast. Biscuit began to bark, a high-pitched, frantic sound that echoed off the cabin walls. Clara backed away from the door, her hand finding the hunting knife her father had left behind. It was too large for her small hand, but she gripped it anyway, the cold metal giving her courage. But the horses stopped outside. Voices murmured, deep, unfamiliar voices that sent chills down Clara's spine. Then came a pounding on the door that shook the entire cabin. "Open up," a gruff voice demanded. "We know someone's in there." Clara said nothing. She pressed herself against the far wall, Biscuit clutched to her chest, the knife held out before her with trembling hands. The pounding continued. "We ain't here to hurt nobody. We're looking for Thomas Hutchins." At the mention of her father's name, Clara's resolve wavered. Maybe these men knew something. Maybe they could help. "My pa ain't here," she called out, her voice stronger than she felt. "He's gone to town with my ma." There was silence outside. Then the same voice, softer now. "Is that a child in there? A little girl?" "Burr, go away," Clara shouted. "My pa will be back any minute and he's got a rifle." More murmuring. Then a different voice, younger and kinder. "Miss, my name is Deputy Samuel Redbird. I work for Sheriff Canton in Dry Creek. We've been sent to find you." Clara's grip on the knife tightened. "Prove it." A badge slid under the door, glinting in the dying firelight. Clara approached cautiously, never lowering the knife, and examined it. It looked real. A silver star with the words Deputy Sheriff engraved around the edges. "If I open this door," Clara said, "and you ain't who you say you are, I'll stick you with this knife. I swear I will." Despite the gravity of the situation, a chuckle came from outside. "I believe you would, miss. Now please open the door. It's cold out here, and we've got important news about your folks." Clara unbolted the door with shaking hands. It swung open to reveal 3 men on horseback, their faces weathered by sun and wind. The youngest of them, a man with copper skin and long black hair braided down his back, dismounted and knelt before her. "You must be Clara May," he said gently. "Your ma told me all about you, said you were the bravest girl in all the territories." "Where are my parents?" Clara demanded, still holding the knife. Deputy Redbird's expression grew somber. There was trouble in town. Some bad men, outlaws, came through looking for gold. Your pa stood up to them when they started threatening folks. He's a hero, your pa. Clara's blood ran cold. "Is he dead?" "No, miss. But he's hurt bad. Your ma is with him at the doctor's house. She sent us to fetch you." Relief and terror warred within Clara's chest. Her father was alive, but hurt. Her mother was safe. The nightmare wasn't over, but it had shifted into something she could understand. "Can you take me to them?" she asked. Deputy Redbird nodded. "That's why we're here. But we should move quick. Those outlaws are still out there somewhere, and this cabin ain't safe." Clara grabbed bed biscuit and the wool blanket, leaving everything else behind. Deputy Redbird lifted her onto his horse, settling her in front of him where she could hold Biscuit securely. The other 2 men flanked them as they rode into the darkness. The journey to Dry Creek took several hours. Clara watched the stars wheel overhead, finding comfort in their familiar patterns. Her mother had taught her the constellations during the long wagon journey west, pointing out Orion and the Big Dipper as they lay together under the vast sky. "Deputy Redbird," Clara said quietly, "those bad men who hurt my pa, will they come after us?" The deputy was silent for a moment. "They might try, miss, but they won't succeed. Sheriff Canton has men all over these hills looking for them. And I promise you, on my honor, that I will keep you safe until you're back with your family." Something in his voice made Clara believe him. They arrived in Dry Creek as the first light of dawn painted the eastern sky in shades of pink and gold. The town was small, just a main street with a general store, a saloon, a church, and a scattering of other buildings. Deputy Redbird guided his horse to a modest house at the edge of town, where lamplight glowed in the windows. Before they even reached the door, it flew open, and Elizabeth Hutchins rushed out, her face streaked with tears. "Clara May!" she cried, gathering her daughter into her arms. "Oh, my baby girl, I'm so sorry we left you alone. I'm so sorry." Clara buried her face in her mother's shoulder, finally allowing herself to cry. Biscuit pressed between them, licked at Elizabeth's hands. "Is Pa going to be all right?" Clara asked through her sobs. Elizabeth pulled back, wiping her daughter's tears with gentle fingers. The doctor says he'll live. The bullet missed anything vital. He'll need time to heal, but he's strong, your pa, strong as an ox. She yelled. Ara nodded, relief flooding through her like warm water. In the days that followed, Clara rarely left her father's bedside. Thomas Hutchins, pale and weakened but very much alive, held his daughter's hand and listened as she recounted her night alone in the cabin. His eyes filled with pride and sorrow in equal measure. You did good, Clara May, he said, his voice rough. You kept your head when most grown men would have panicked. I'm proud of you. I had Biscuit, Clara said simply, stroking the puppy who lay curled at the foot of the bed. He kept me brave. The outlaws were caught 3 days later, apprehended by Sheriff Canton and his deputies in a canyon 20 miles north of town. They would face justice in the territorial court, and the people of Dry Creek would sleep easier knowing the threat had passed. As for the Hutchins family, they decided to stay in Dry Creek. Thomas set up a blacksmith shop near the mining operations, and business proved steady. Elizabeth opened a small school for the children of miners and settlers, teaching reading and arithmetic to eager young minds. And Clara May, the brave little girl who had faced the darkness alone, grew into a strong young woman who never forgot the lessons of that terrible night. Biscuit lived for 15 years, a faithful companion until the very end, and every night, before she went to sleep, Clara would whisper a prayer of thanks for the little brown and white puppy who had kept her company through the longest night of her life. The night she learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the determination to face it anyway.